folks, good morning, happy Friday, and this is Anne. Welcome to Reaper Pro-Tips with our really, like, they're not even disembodied hands at this point, they're disembodied brains, John and Justin, who totally, like, I was sitting here live for like 10 minutes, and they were like, do. So I texted them, and then I Discord texted John, and he's like, oh noes! Oh, okay. Yeah. I figured it was just funny, right? Usually I'm the one who's like, oh no, I'm gonna be late. And this time it was like, I'm here. Anybody home? It was funny. But anyway, so you can blame John. We did go over like several times this week, so starting a little late. Oh well, it means I get a shorter stream for Friday, right? Oh, dear. It's all good, John. It's all good. Like, we've all done it, right? We've all done the wee. There we go. Let me pop over to this so we can chat while we Monique. I know what I'm going to come up with after Monique, too. I have so many models, like, prepped to paint for you guys. It's cool. We're going to do somebody evil. We're going to do an evil person next. A definitely evil person. He looks like very evil. Like, we could spin a happy story for him, but he definitely is looking a little evil. Any moment now. Trailers. Yes, that explains it. You're all, like, busy. Where are my colors? Colors! We're doing gold. Do we want to do gold, or do we want to do a bronze, or do we want to do something in between? I don't know. We probably want to do gold on this model because her armor is darker. So, on models that are lighter, doing bronze instead of gold, if you need a gold tone metal, can be really striking and pretty. But when you've got a medium or dark metal, it pays to go bright with your gold because you need that contrast, right? Morning. Oh, wow. Crazy talk. Summer of 03. Yeah, I came in April. April 1st was my Reaper starter date. And then by summer, I was like, what have I gotten myself into? Oh, dear. That was my first Texas summer, too. I remember how hot that bloody summer was. Like, I was taking walks out in the parking lot on my lunch break, and it was like, wow, Texas really is hot. Hey, everybody. Morning. Yeah, we started a little late today. Blame John's brain. But it's okay, because we all have done it. Let's see here. I want pretty colors. Pretty colors. We're just not going to talk about colors today. We're just going to use all the pretty colors. We're going to Bob Ross it today. All the pretty colors. All the colors are pretty. Where did my rich leather go? Arg. Aha. Hiding in plain sight. Yeah, it's that kind of Friday, guys. So much to do over the next 9 days. 10 days. Humidity is what's wrong with Texas. Down south is true, John David. When I moved to North Texas, though, the humidity wasn't that bad. I mean, it was there, but it wasn't, like, crazy. I think that it's gotten more humid over the 17 years that I lived there. I definitely saw a shift in North Texas where the last couple summers there were just really humid like I had not seen before. Let me see, Saib. I think we did, what do we do? Which blue did we do? We may have done, I actually think we did blue liner here. We may have started out with Ritterlich. I see a slight shift, but I think I moved to blue liner to make it more subtly blue. And that definitely looks like blue liner and white, and so does that. So, you could use any of those. Ritterlich is going to be very, very blue, though, when you add white to it. Just be aware of that. So what you should choose, if you're using a dark blue plus white to highlight your black with, just be aware of, like, how blue you want it. So things like Ritterlich or Nightmare Black, which is actually very heavily blue, are going to give you something more like Zari, where you can see how blue that color on the back of her boots is, and the front. So that is Nightmare Black. So that's a very, very blue black. Whereas Monique's hair, not nearly so blue. So when you're looking at doing that, which I really enjoy doing, is using a very dark blue and just adding white to it, and playing with that. But it depends on how blue you want it. Hey, you can't say Texans are what's wrong with Texas, Shadow Raven, because, like, all the Reaper peeps. Like, Ron is a native Texan. And I lived in Texas. We probably have Sadie's a native Texan, yeah. Yeah, you can't diss the Texans, come on. Like, okay, if you, like, maybe if you yourself are a Texan, maybe you could diss them because then you have the, you know, you have the know. Like, you have the experience of Texans that you really, really, really don't like. But still. Yeah, see? Lots of cool native Texans. I think people like to stereotype sometimes. I don't know. When I lived in Texas, I mean, I didn't really pick up the accent very much, so I guess I was just an import, you know. But yeah, people just secretly wish they were Texan, exactly. Well, I mean, I decided to give it a try, right? Austin is awesome. But everybody's entitled to their opinion. But I have to point out that Reaper has several very cool Texans working on the staff, and so you can't do that. You can't just say that. People are just what's wrong with everyone. Okay, I accept that. What is the saying? A person is cool, but people are bad. People are dumb. Something like that. Like it's like that general, like, kind of like individually versus the mass, right? Except, yeah. There we go. All right, let's get Monique going on. So, let's see here. We started with our rich leather. I think, these days I've been doing a bit more highlighting first, shading second. Yeah, pretty much then. Like, that's the one thing I learned when I moved to Texas, because being from Wisconsin and having lived out east, I had, like, no realistic concept of what Texas was like. I was kind of afraid to move there because it had this rep as being ultra-conservative and not weird enough. Not weird enough for me to be there. But happily, I discovered that Texans are weird in their own fiercely independent way. And I got to really admire the state in some ways. There's still some ways that I wish it would, like, grow up. Like, I was reading yesterday about how Texas fossil fuel industries are, like, fighting back and striking back and trying to smear the renewable energy industries. And I'm like, dudes, and people from Texas were interviewed in this article going, why are we just like, this is so financially stupid. We should be embracing renewable energy because we can make so much money off of it. And I'm like, yeah, why aren't you looking at that? Anyway, that's enough talk about the news, but yeah. But yeah, Texas is cool. All the states, like, have their own, like, quirky awesomeness, I think. And I was pleasantly surprised at how quirkily awesome Texas was. And, like, Texans have this great, like, kind of, like, philosophy of, like, you know, you can do what you want as long as you don't do it on my lawn, you know? So it's like, they are not, like, a bunch of, I don't know, they're cooler than you think. Texans are cooler than you think. They really do respect individual freedom and, in general, and this is all generalizations, of course, are flawed intrinsically. But I say, I ended up living there for 17 years, and coming out generally with a very positive view of the state. One thing that I noticed when I moved to Texas is how nice everybody was. And I think this varies by, like, the area of the U.S. I've seen jokes and comics done about it, where it's like some areas of the country are, like, more kind of brusque and not as nice or rude, even come off as rude, but actually are, like, really big spirited. Like, I think the joke is, like, New York versus Seattle. Where in New York, everybody to your face is like, well, screw you. But in their heads, they're like, have a great day. And on the West Coast, it's different. Everybody's like, have a great day. But in their heads, they're like, screw you. And that's, like, totally, like, you know, pushed to the edge. But I think Texans are very much like, They really are, like, people were so nice. People were so polite and friendly, and it was weird for me. Coming from the Midwest, people seemed a lot more closed off. I mean, that's where I grew up. And so when I got to Texas and everybody was so friendly, it was just it was really unexpected and nice, and I think it helped me really adjust to the state. Yeah, Reaper's in Texas, so exactly. Yeah, right, Zen, right? That's what that comic was playing off of, I think. Let's see here. I want to go a bit bright here because usually I would go up to like an NMM gold highlight plus white, but here I've got a mix of lantern yellow and NMM gold. You see how bright it is? I'm actually going to just add white to that because so many of the colors, like her armor is pretty vivid. So I want to experiment with going a bit brighter on my gold here. Well, David grew up there, so I don't know. I think the subtleties evaded him, though. He's a very straightforward guy. So what this is doing, since I'm not using the straight up NMM gold highlight, and I'm using something that's more orangey, I'm coming up with a more orangey highlight for my gold then. So we'll see how that works. This is actually a color variance that I haven't ever tried before on NMM. A variation on a theme. I always try to tell you guys that, like, I'm going to actually reverse this and use this brush full with white in it to lighten up this area, this color a bit. I told you guys that as many painters are out there as how many different formulations for NMM you'll find. I think we're all a little closer on our steel, silver and steel, but like gold is infinitely complex. And a lot of us even change our recipe from model to model, so. Yeah, exactly, Shadow Raven. Like, part of that's just the greater Reaper community, right? And part of it is that Reaper wants you to have a good time. Like, we want you to come and, kick your worries to the curb and relax and have a lot of fun for 4 days at ReaperCon. Like, that's what we want. That's our happy zone. Because when you guys are happy and having a great time, we feel great. Like, Reaper, that empowers our Reaper superpowers. Like, we come out of that rejuvenated, feeling like we did a good job and that our fan base, has, reaffirmed of its love of us, right? That we've lived up to the hype and we've done our best, right? That's so important. You use the Reaper NMM Gold Triad? But even that is different, John David, because, I doctored the NMM Gold Triad. I add Lantern Yellow to it. And I made it! Although I made it with feedback from other painters who were using colors similar to that. So it's just this never-ending wave. The NMM Gold Triad is meant to be a good triad if you just don't want to think about it. Like, if you just want an NMM Gold Triad, then you could rock that one. And it would look fine. I like to play with things, obviously, because I'm like Miss Color mad scientist, so I hope so. There are a lot of really nice little, like, just two people, like there are some tiny operations in Europe that are just really nice. No, I'm teaching 2 classes, Durham. They should have them in the morning. David and I went for morning slots. Yeah, New Gold is really versatile. John David, for sure. Yep, I have a couple classes on there. I didn't go whole hog because teaching 4 classes plus judging the painting competition plus doing the awards ceremony means that ReaperCon is if I did 4 classes, that would be a lot of stress for me. Serious amounts of stress. So for me, teaching just a couple classes and having a lot of free time to circulate and talk to my friends and paint with my friends and talk to you guys, that's a lot easier for me. I mean, when it comes down to it, I really am still an introvert. So anything where I have to do something public and engaging, I'm going to spend a lot of energy on it because I want you guys to have an awesome experience. And that means that the instructor has to give up a lot of, oomph and energy. But then if you do that 4 times plus all this other stuff, you get really drained. And there was like a point on Sunday, like some cons ago, where I was just like dropping over. Like I didn't want to talk to anybody. I don't want to be in that zone. So I know that I need to pace myself. Yep, day 1 and 2. I figure we have a lot of people usually teaching on Saturdays, so. Yeah, that's why you use the complementary colors to get a pearlescent look, Valandar. You use the green with the pink highlight. And that's what gives you a pearlescent. That's what gives you that pearl look. And then the gray base. It all is like made to look pearly. I don't like my vampires to sparkle, but I like them to gleam. Gleam or glisten. Cool. Actually, it's just that steel is just, I guess it's just easy. Like, Trashorama, like, okay, so the problem with it is, and this is what you run into when you're designing triads, is that if I had to design a steel midtone, it would be cloudy gray. And cloudy gray already exists in its own triad. So then what do I do? Make a paint that's a tiny bit different from cloudy gray? But then I'm asking you to buy another color that's not very different. When really you could just use cloudy gray and gray liner and white. And plus, you know, if I made that a triad, everybody would be confused because the liner shadow would be so different consistently than the, you know, midtone and highlight. Plus you need pure white as a highlight. We already have 3 versions of pure white. Do you see what I mean? So a lot of people say that the best triad for steel NMM is the stone and mist triad, or this, whatever I ended up calling it. The foggy gray, moonstone blue, and carbon gray. You can get a very cool NMM out of that, and I actually featured those doing just that in a PDF on my Patreon, back toward the beginning of it, actually. I showed a fire giant sword painted that way, painted with that triad. Oh no, I am all team whatever his name, the werewolf. I am all werewolf all the time. Like vampires, schmampires. I voted with my dollar too. I bought far more Werewolf the Apocalypse books than Vampire the Masquerade books. Yeah. Well, just use Cloudy, Stormy, Misty. Like, Cloudy, Stormy, Misty, honestly, and then take it a little darker and a little lighter. But the problem is with Steel NMM, you're going from black to white, so ideally your shadow and your highlight are, like, black and white, or close. Thanks, John David. Thanks for the endorsement. I guess I should just mention it. My Patreon is awesome, and you should go there, and you should look at stuff, and I have some free stuff, and it's patreon.com/paintingbig. There we go. Then we got the plug out of the way. Yeah, World of Darkness was my favorite. I mean, Werewolf is still my favorite RPG. All right, let's get some brushes. What do I want to use today? I guess I've been moving back toward Big Brush. Big Brush. So we'll work with Big Brush on this. Crows, awesome. My dragon fries your werewolves and your vampires, yeah. Well, but it's humanoid monsters. Although you could do were-dragons, and dragons can shapeshift, so, you know, you could work that. You could work that. Yeah, the werewolves are more good guys, many of them, so that's why. Werewolf, out of all of them, like Werewolf and Changeling were the most heroic fantasy World of Darkness settings. You could run it like that, so. Yes. Yeah, I can't play evil. All right. So let's map in. We've got our brown liner. We've got a little bit of rich leather in it. We've got a rich leather that has some lantern yellow in it. I probably need some straight up rich leather. Maybe with a tiny bit of the shadow in it. Since I did start with straight up rich leather. And sometimes you want an intermediate shadow before you go straight to the liner. So, there. There we go. Excellent. So now let's see how this works. Just want to mix this up. Gold and brass are very close, Iffy. That's why. Brass just tends to be a bit colder, a bit greener. Don't make it as warm. In general, if you look at brass fixtures, you'll see that they are not as yellow as gold. Not even close. Brass rod may look really kind of golden, but that's because it started to tarnish. When you get like brass polished up, it's actually a colder metal. And bronze is a darker and colder, generally. At least bronze the way we tend to paint it, because we're painting it somewhat tarnished. They've got a lot in common, but if you want to use them on a miniature in general, you're looking to push the differences if you're trying to use them on a miniature. Because your reason to use brass would be that you want something colder, a little bit lighter, that goes with your color scheme. Your reason you use gold would be that you want to go yellow and richer and saturated. Your reason to use bronze would be that you want to use kind of a darker metal, because when bronze starts to tarnish, like copper, it turns a rich brown color that you can really work with, and then you can use green verdigris. So, there are reasons to use that in some color schemes. So that's all that's kind of the kind of my brain process. Like when I'm thinking of what do I want to do here. And usually I don't do brass. Brass is complicated, and to maybe really make it read, I think you need a bigger surface. So on miniatures, I don't think brass is as successful, although you can use it there's at least one Space Marine chapter that has, red and brass as its colors specifically. I think corn is supposed to be red and brass, but it's just not as yellow. But a lot of people still paint it like gold, so it's very tiny differences. And the thing is that because it's tiny differences, it's really hard to portray the differences on something small. Dogfather, thank you for the resub. 17 months, awesome. Hold on, what do we got? John David selling the Patreon. Hey, thanks. But don't continue to spam me, please. we could plug our Patreon, but then let's move on, because this is about painting gold and brass and bronze on vampires and things. Bronze for when you want drama. I think bronze goes very well if you're painting white armor. Then doing bronze on white. I'm doing bronze on a model. Where is it? It's actually a commission, and you guys have seen it kind of before. Well, actually, we could use Xandros. So okay. So here's Xandros. We were painting him for our D&D game on my stream, and I'm going bronze with his hammer. I'm not going gold. And the reason for that is that I think it goes better with his skin tone. And I also feel like gold, putting a huge yellow shiny thing out here, and there'll be more of it up here, would distract from the rest of the model. Because the hammer is so big and because it's so out here, you don't want to go really bright and shiny with it. But I wanted that hammerhead to be bronze. And so for me, that worked for that reason. Even though he's a darker model, the bronze still works, and it has some nice color parity with his skin and some of the leather. Once I bring the leather up, it will also have something in common. So the other reason is that because he's a priest of storms and also the ocean, I wanted to use, I've got a lot of greens and blues worked into this, and bronze let me shade with green. So that let me do a color thing. Actually, I don't have as many samples as I should, because there's stuff I no longer own or sold or sent to people or whatever, right? But in general, that's why I chose this. So there's a multi-stage process that you choose when you're choosing which metal you're going to go with. And part of it should be color and focus. Is this a huge metal thing? And it's way out here on the side of the model, will it distract too much from the rest of the figure? So the placement of the metal is important. How much space you have, what colors you're looking to shade it with. If I was going to use blues and greens, then bronze is an obvious choice because it tarnishes in those colors, right? It oxidizes in those colors. So yeah, so those are some of the thought processes you want to go through. With Monique here, we're definitely doing, even though her skin is very complex, we're definitely doing a red, blue, green, or a red, yellow, blue color scheme, because her hair has the blue highlights, and we've got a very saturated red here in her eyes and her armor. So that means that I want the gold to go more yellow. And whenever you want gold to go more yellow, or the yellow metal to go more yellow, you're probably dealing with gold, because that's the most yellow metal. Brass, like I said, is a little bit colder. You could do brass on this. The reason to do brass on this, if you wanted to, would be to go a little bit lighter and brighter, and maybe to introduce some green in the shadows, which would offset the armor, but it wouldn't stick as much to the red, yellow, blue color that I have going on, and I already have green in her skin tone to kind of bring out that red. So I don't need more green in the metals, in my opinion. Does that make sense? Are you guys following this? Because this is like, I often feel like nobody like responds when I talk about like theory crafting color and stuff like this, but in many ways, it's like the most important part of what I do on this stream is to try to get you guys to kind of see the process for thinking about, you know, why you would choose a different metal, right? To do, like why even if you're doing a metallic, why would you choose a brass instead of a gold, right? Because the brass is going to be a lot colder and not as yellow. So does that work for your color scheme or doesn't it, right? Okay, good. Because I wonder sometimes, because often when I go off on these little, like, explain the thought process tangents, like, everybody's just kind of talking about food. And so I'm like, are you listening? Do you care? Should I stop talking about this sort of thing? Okay. Yeah, so just, like, those are kind of the thought processes that I go through. But yeah, if you're right, it's hard to tell the difference, especially on a 28. And usually on a 28, what you'll find is if it's bronze, it's going to stay darker. They're going to do a tarnished bronze. They're not going to do a polished bronze. Because when you polish up gold and brass and bronze, they are very similar to each other. Bronze is maybe a little oranger, a little darker. You know, brass is a little lighter, a little bit greener or more muted. And then the gold is really rich in yellow usually. And Egyptian gold has red in it as well. So if you're going to do two different colors, especially if you're going to do it on the same model, I would recommend bronze plus either gold or brass. Because the bronze is going to be darker, you can make your gold or brass lighter, you can highlight it different, and that's going to bring it more home that these are two separate metals. Otherwise, especially on 28s, you're going to get into the brass and bronze, or brass and gold are going to look too similar, probably, on little stuff. Okay, Grey Wolf. Yeah, I just want to make sure, like, I don't want to bore you guys, and if you just want to, like, get into more of the painting, then great, but a lot of this, when you're trying to figure out NMM or choose a metallic color for your model, like, this is useful to work with, right? Okay, good deal. Yeah, well, I mean, you're doing right, though, dear Clearman, like, you're copying color schemes right now, you know, like when you're painting a model, you're trying to copy the box art and whatever, and that's a great way to start. But the other way to do that, when you are doing it, try to get why that box art works or doesn't. Like if you're like, you know, I wanted to paint it this way, but I really don't like it. I want to make it warmer or colder, or I want to change the color, you know, like, don't just copy it. Think about why they made the choices they did, right? What are they trying to do here? What does this color do for this piece, right? Would there be a better substitute, in your opinion? You know, it doesn't mean you're wrong if you you know, think the box art isn't as good as it could be. Like, David and I have those moments all the time. But yeah. I mean, the way to start is to start simple, Durham. Start with your color wheel. Start with red, yellow, blue, and green, orange, purple. And then start pushing it more toward the muted ends. And get a feel for it. I don't know. Reaper John is a pretty styling dude, but I don't know if he's ever taken a color blindness test, Pendrake. But a lot of people are a little colorblind. A lot of people. So if people keep wondering about your paint jobs and saying, you know, that's a little bit off, then you should maybe test yourself. Because I had a friend like that. He didn't realize he was colorblind until he was in his mid-20s. Like, seriously. And it took getting into mini painting for him to start to realize it. Because when he would put a color scheme together, then people would be like, that's a little bit off. Until we figured out why. Yeah. So yeah. Yay, if he's, you're an optician. Very cool. Very cool. All right. So we talked about, we'll put Xandros to the side here. shiny and colorful as he is. And let's get on our Monique. And I'll get up to pure white. We also need pure white in this spectrum. The other thing about gold is that you tend to have a wide spectrum of hues that you're working with, because gold is just pretty much, is just a bit complex. And to make it look right, you need to be working with several different colors. Yeah, superpower. Like Maharoon, yeah, and myself. Like, I always felt color was easy. Like, I always had a good instinctual grasp of color and what went together. But I think part of that is, over the years, just looking at a lot of different paint jobs. Like, there are probably, color combos that I wouldn't have thought would work if I had seen them, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. But now I'm like, oh yeah, of course that works, because I've seen it in action, so my brain has kind of clicked on it. That's why I say that D. Clearman is doing it right when he's starting painting from box art, just trying to duplicate box art. But you gotta also kind of, once you have that in your head, then you're like, okay, violet red works with this dark blue really well. And then if I make, some gold or some silver, that works really well with that. Why does it work? Because it's a red, yellow, blue color scheme, and it's just a little bit different on all the levels. Like, the colors are just a little bit skewed from the traditional red, blue, yellow. Like, it's a dark blue, it's a violet red, it's a orangey gold, right? So you just start noticing those differences. And when you paint a model like that, or when you look at a piece of box art that you really like, kind of look at the colors and go, kind of file them away in your head and say, oh, this color scheme works together. I could use it even on a different model, right? And maybe try that. Oh, yeah. He sees the anchor sword faction as purple, but I see it as blue. I don't know. I haven't seen the art, so I can't give you my color very, very good color opinion. Okay. I guess we could do a test if we had some rich indigo around here, asking you guys what it is. All right, I've got all my colors mixed up. Time to go. Blue and purple, though, they bring up, Grey Wolf is right that blue and purple can shift a lot with lighting. But blue and purple also, when it's an indigo, like when it's ultramarine and has some violet in it, that can be difficult. Like, some people will look at the rich indigo color and they'll say it's purple, and some will look at it and say it's blue. It's balanced very finely on that line on purpose. All right, let's put some highlights on this. And what it is just probably that different people see colors differently. Like, neither one of you could be colorblind. Both of you could be right, Pendrake, is what I'm trying to say. People do see things differently. No, but everybody's eyes are different. So you do get points where, like, somebody will see something one way or the other, and neither one of you is wrong. Yeah, exactly, Iffy. And that's just it. It's like, everybody sees the color a little differently. Our heads process it a little differently. So I'm going to start with just a basic blob of highlighting at the front of the breastplate here, because that's where the light would be falling down on it. And I'm just going to go with a straight band of light. Not going to break it up. If this was a very large model, I might do it slightly differently, but this is a rounded area. It's a cylinder, so it's going to have a band of color running down the front of it. Like, if this breastplate was, like, not attached to a human and it just continued on in a circle, like each one of these, they would make a little cylinder, right? That was kind of narrower at the top and bottom. But it would still be a cylinder. And when you're doing a cylinder, just like you've got your brush ferrule here, you have a straight line going down the front of it in accordance with where the light is falling. My light is coming from, up that way. So that means you see that line of light going down that way. And that's the same thing here, that line of light, because the light is dropping like this, so you're going to have that line of light going down the front. And I'm going to bring that all the way up. Yeah, I can't go in and alt-tab or anything, Pendrake. Somebody else could, I think. I don't know. I don't want to depart from the stream. And we'll go up to our next lightest color. Now, the hard part about chibis, in my opinion, is the fact that they have such tiny bodies, and everything is very compressed. So you kind of have to paint it a little bit exaggerated, and you won't be able to necessarily get details and gradients in as well because they are tiny. So you kind of have to generalize. Yeah, when you've got something that's on the line like that, like I said, Rich Indigo is one of those colors. Oh, wait, maybe I have it over here. Yeah. Although the camera's not going to see it, like, as it is necessarily. Rich Indigo is finely balanced on that line. It looks blue on the camera, but it's much more purple in person. And this, of course, is going to be a Kickstarter color once that ships. And you all need to buy it because it's wonderful. Hey, Bob. Oh, good. There we go. So Bob is typing instead of Julie in the chat, guys, and says he has color vision deficiency and limits the shades of color he can see, and he finds my stream and advice helpful. Good. Yeah, Bob, one way to get past that is just to go high contrast with light and dark. Like, you can pair almost anything together if you go high contrast with light and dark. Yeah, exactly. And PC displays also, right? Yeah. So there's a lot of things that make colors look different. Even what I ran into recently is just like box art that was printed, where somebody who was painting the model had one batch of box art that was printed with strong, like mine was a little faded and theirs was a little stronger, and mine was a little redder and theirs was a little browner. And so it just because the print lots were slightly different, because you're printing on paper, so sometimes you're going to have a little bit of variance. And that was even a thing. So, all right, so we're bringing in that strong highlight. I need a little more yellow here. The one thing with NMM, and this happens when everybody's like layering, is that the tendency is to lose your midtones. So you want to make sure you still have yellow. You don't want to just go down to like pale yellow and brown, or your gold is going to look really weird. You want to make sure you've got some of that strong yellow in, even if you need to glaze in something toward the end, or glaze it with yellow to bring that color back. I don't know. I'd have to... I mean, Rich Indigo was in HD. And we might have brought it back for a... ReaperCon, but I don't remember. I think that's the only one that would have had that, though. I don't remember the second iteration, though. Oh, Ash and Brown, yes. Yes, there have been 2 different iterations of it. Because we kept trying to bring it back, because it's just like, it's like Doug Cohen and Jennifer Haley, like, you know, there's core colors that those guys use for skin tones, and whenever it was getting canceled, they panicked. So I tried to keep Ash and Brown around for as long as I could, because I knew that it's just like Sandy Brown. Sandy Brown is Doug's go-to for starting skin tones, and Ashen Brown is Jennifer's for a lot of things. And so I tried to keep those guys around for them. So that's why Ashen Brown kept trying to make a comeback, but nobody ever appreciated the poor Ashen Brown. And so now Ashen Brown is getting a final chance, maybe, I think. Maybe not. Maybe I'm misremembering. I didn't think I was bringing back an Ashen, but there is a bruised purple. I didn't think we had that, though. I didn't think we had an Ashen Brown in this one. I don't know. Or maybe she was trying to bring it back, and so she saw there were 2 different versions. Yeah. Because sometimes when things get re-put out, they might shift a little bit. Especially if the previous version hasn't been a great seller, you might try to shift it a little and see if you can appeal to a wider audience. So you do want to pick out these little details, the little spiky details on the bodice, the top of the bodice here. You want, even though they may not get a full highlight, you do want to bring them out a little bit so that you don't lose that detail. Oh, okay. That's right. I remember that. Yeah, okay. Yep. I was thinking about the Indigo Triad instead of the... I forgot about the... We needed to get Carnival out there, Carnival Purple out there for Michael Proctor. Pretty much that, like, that triad is all about, like, painters that needed colors. So again, the Ashen Brown for people who have learned to appreciate it, and the Carnival Purple for Michael Proctor, and Bruised Purple was kind of for me, because I always felt like Bruised Purple was a really awesome color, and that it wasn't appreciated, and so I thought I'd give it another chance. And I think we also put it out as kind of a sample color or something. I remember like doing a batch of it and people going, oh, I love this. And it's like, well, why didn't you buy it when it was first released? But, you know, sometimes it just takes time for people to like kind of take to a color. And you gamble. Like when you're putting out new colors, you're always going to gamble that, hey, these should be useful. People should like these. But you really have no idea often. I mean, especially when you've got as many colors as Master Series has, right? Like, people already have a red, so why would they like your new red better? So that's why thinking about usage is useful. I'm just making these little clasps. I think they're kind of like almost like skulls, but I'm not certain. So I'm just going to like kind of paint them in accordance with the... Uh-oh. 1 second. My watch has notifications on. Let me turn those off. I hate it when my wrist buzzes. There we go. Sweet. There we go. So I'm just going to get these guys and kind of highlight them a little bit to bring out the details that I can see. Sometimes with bone models, these little tiny things, you lose some of the details. So just like highlight what you can see and try to bring it out. Yeah, it is a great shadow for draw nipple paint. Good point. Alrighty. So we've got that gold. Let's get these shoulder pads. Now we run into the fact that she has a giant head. So the giant head is going to cast some shadows on the shoulder pads. This one is getting more light. I can see it. This one, though, is firmly shaded underneath her cheek. So the only place we're probably going to have a strong highlight is on the corner of it. All right. Let's get this... Kind of looking at making sure I got all of this colored back there. I think I'm going to take my shadow color and stuff it back there in the crack. Because any metal way back here is not going to get a highlight. So I can darken it down a little bit by using this rich leather with a drop of brown liner in it. You guys in your container watching. It'll come when it comes. It's like a wizard. It arrives precisely when it means to. Hold on, I gotta mix up more of this lantern yellow mix. Oh yeah, the Black Goat of the Woods is a great one for draw nipple pink. All those Cthulhian creatures. There we go. I need one more drop. Oh, I see. He asked for it. Not really. The horizon is pretty flat in Denton. My horizon has gotten a lot bumpier since I moved out here to Mountain View. There we go. Just getting a little bit more of my yellow mixed up now that I need to. You guys are so silly. Can I just say that? You're totally, totally silly. It's almost stretch break time, but not quite. We're gonna do shoulder pad. Now, on these little tiny shoulder pads and bits of NMM, you really are not necessarily going realistic. You're really just trying to go, you're sticking to some realism. Like, there really would be a highlight down here where the shoulder pad, you know, kind of hits the light. I'm going to actually refocus here. Hold on. Focusing. There, focusing. Yes, Friday is a silly day. Let's not go there. Let's just go straight to Saturday. But then Thursday would become our Friday. And there would be a highlight up here on the top of it. So I've got 3 little bits of highlighting that I'm focusing on. And I got to remember the back of this probably gets a small highlight as well. So when you've got really tiny things, you just need to identify like kind of the points or bits that would get the highest highlight and leave shadows in between them like I have up here. There's so much, it's so tiny and you don't have a lot of room. And so you have to generalize. And that's with chibi stuff, that's generally your best tactic. Doesn't mean you don't highlight and shade, but it means that your highlighting and shading needs to get a lot punchier and a lot like just kind of generalistic. You're not trying to do something really, really real on it. For here, this side, I'm leaving shadows up in underneath her chin here and up against the shield. And I'm really just kind of bringing up this one corner in the light because that's where the light is falling. So yay. We can be silly. It's Friday. At least it's this weekend should be fun. I'm planning to have fun this weekend. I'm going to bring in just a little bit of pop on that white there. You still have to bring your NMM up to white. But you may find that instead of being strictly realistic with your highlighting, you're going more stylistic because everything is so compressed and so small compared to the big head. One more thing up here. So the side of the armor here on the breastplate. I'm going to bring up a little bit of light at the top. A little bit of light kind of on the side, but not up to pure white here. And maybe a little bit of under reflection because you still want, if you have a big enough space to portray like a highlight, shadow, and under reflection or gradient of sorts, then you should do it. But if you don't have room, you just don't have room. Don't sweat it. Then tiny NMM surfaces are very much generalized. They're done stylistically, so they look good. They may not be actually the way the NMM would work if it was on a properly large-sized shoulder pad or breastplate. You just gotta run with what you got. Like, those highlights and shadows are roughly where I would put them on a big breastplate, but it would be a lot more... I could space it a lot more realistic, and I could use more colors, and I'd have more room, you know. So now I'm going to bring in a little bit more of my pure white here. Wherever I want to punch my highlights. I got to do the one over here. It's a small world chibi. It's a small world Monique after all. There we go. And I'm going to make kind of a highlight here because that's kind of the rounded. Again, we're thinking about now a sphere and where the highlight would be. And then there's an under reflection, just a little bit toward the end here. And again, generalizing because this is so little. You just want to kind of hit what you have to. And with tiny details, it's usually bright highlight, shadow, under reflection. And if you can get that, you're good. Now, I don't have a lot of really dark on this model yet, so I can punch my shadows down a little bit. The danger in bringing in your shadows really dark on small areas is that you're gonna lose the detail. So kind of be cautious about what you do. Maybe opt for a slightly lighter, darkest shadow because it's going to make it disappear. I always disliked that song as well. There. All right. Decent. Need a little more shadow here. In a moment, Durham. But yeah, you still need your pure white highlight, especially on tiny NMM. It's the only cue that the eye knows. The only cue that tells the eye that it's supposed to be shiny. And if you aren't able to do a lot of realistic highlighting and shading of the metal, that you need that indicator. Because you just don't have a lot of room otherwise. There. Alrighty, I think I'm going to stretch break there. I want to work on this part of it when we come back, because that's the more interesting part. The shield. Let us get little Monique down here and put her little card by her. And refocus and do our stretch. It's just squeezing it out. I mean, try it. You could totally use your fingers to like point your brush and it'll be just fine. And as far as when you load it up, yeah, I don't lick brushes. Don't do it. Not since my friend got sick. I've showed you guys before how I squeeze out my brush. And then it's just when you load it up with paint, you kind of roll the brush in a circle when you unload it. So like when you load it up with paint, you're kind of, as you're dabbing it off, you're also kind of rolling it so that you're making it, shaping it into a point. But if you start out with it looking like that because you squeeze the water out of it, you're going to get a good tip. Yep. No brush licking for me. Stand up and take a stretch if you feel like it. It's good for you. But yeah, I do not believe in brush licking. I'm the anti-brush licker. Stretch. Oh, my spine cracked. I definitely needed that one. There we go. It's Casual Friday, so I'm wearing my D&D shirt instead of my Reaper polo. Just keep trying, Grey Wolf, and try to look at metal. Look at metal in your environment. Think about, where is this highlight, and why is it shaped like this? Where is this highlight coming from? Like, where's the light coming from? You want to look for 3 things when you're out in the world looking at metal. You want to look for the brightest highlight, the shadow that should be like near it, and then an under reflection or bounced reflection of light coming back at the surface from the environment, and it'll be a highlight, but it won't be as bright as the main light source. Those are the 3 components of NMM. When you are out in the world, look at metal. Think about those 3 components. Try to figure out why you're seeing, like, you know, why and where you're seeing them on a surface. And it's going to vary by how shiny the surface is and how bright the light is and the surroundings. All right, I'm going to go and do my floor exercises, and I'll be right back. All right. We are back. So I got my last Kickstarter that I subscribed to today. I've been trying to hold off on any other Kickstarters. Successfully so far. But it's the Egyptian, like, anthropomorphic animal, like, critter one that I subscribed to. So I got my foxes. I'm terribly excited. It's like, they knocked on our door early this morning and delivered. David's like, what did you get from the Ukraine? I'm like, oh, it's my Kickstarter. It's like Christmas, right? For those European Kickstarters where you're never quite sure when you're going to get it. Yeah, I have so many beautiful models right now. Like, all I have to do to resist a new Kickstarter is pretty much to, like, haul out my box of boxes and, like, look lovingly at all of the things I ordered this in 2020. I have so many beautiful things to paint. And then I'm just like, okay, I don't need anything new right now. Just looking at my beautiful things that I have to paint makes me happy. Totally conquers the urge to spend more money, especially because I'm trying to save up. I need a new laptop pretty bad. My Mac is dying, and that's a big purchase for starving artist Anne. So that's a good impetus to not give in to the call of the Kickstarter. All right, so let's look at the top of this. You can kind of see. Let's see here. Kind of see how it goes. You got a highlight, shadow, highlight, shadow, highlight, shadow, highlight. You're gonna alternate, guys. You're always gonna be alternating your shadows and highlights, and how bright or how dark those shadows or highlights are is going to depend on where they are on the model. Like, things that are more facing the facing upward, like this face as opposed to that face, are going to get an overall lighter highlight and shadow. This one's going to be a little darker. Yeah, I spent a lot of money on Kickstarter last year, and yeah, technically I could, like, tax deduct some of that, because some of those models are for my Patreon lessons and stuff, and I've definitely used some of them that way. I'll probably use one of them this or next month, but it's still money that I have to spend up front, and like I said, I need some equipment, so that means holding off on the models, especially when I've got so many beautiful models. Like, I really, really do, guys. If you saw my collection, you'd be like, oh my gosh, I want to paint all of that. And then I'm like, yes, that's how I feel. I think there came a point when I was moving so much after the divorce where I just like was so sick of all the stuff I'd accumulated. And so I started trying to look at my stuff more as a, being happy about the awesome stuff I had rather than looking for new things. I still look at all the new stuff. My enablement channel on my Discord is still very, very tempting at times. But these days I think I'm a little better at like kind of going, how much do I like grading it on a scale of absolutely must have versus, would like. And, a lot of you probably have more room than me to store stuff, so you don't have to worry about that as much, but I didn't want to move into David's apartment and immediately shove David and all his belongings out on the street because of my miniatures collection. What can I say? Right. Yeah. See, Dogfather? I don't know. I just got... Yeah. I mean, my computer is a MacBook Pro, and it's been around for a while, and I really love it. But it's to the point where the screen is starting to flicker and not work as well, and then I know that I'm in trouble. And it's my writing computer; it's how I do all my Kickstarter PDFs and everything. That's why I bought a nice laptop so I could go various places and still work, and carry it with me easily. But yeah, it's definitely getting to the point where I need to blow the money to replace it. And I do like Macs, which means it's not going to be cheap to replace. I have a weakness for like those beautiful European resin, 75mm resin and busts and stuff, so... Because I like big stuff. I like painting big, and I cannot lie. That's why my name is my name. Alright, so I'm putting in some shadows here, guys, just to define some of these areas first. And there will be a shadow, since the light is falling on here, and we've got a little bit of an overhang. There won't be as much of a shadow as we see here, but I do want that shadow. And I'm going to darken it a little bit. I'm going to kind of do a little bit of lining. Because, again, lining is just very minimalized shading. So when you've got a very small area, your lining can become your shading. Certainly it can become your darkest shadow. And that will help bring out details. These Raphaels are great because even though they're big, they've got such a fine tip. You can do such fine lining with them. Okay. I don't know about that, John David. I use both. I have to use a Windows machine for my streaming. So what I'm streaming on right now, this is an Alienware. And it stood up actually really well. The reason that I use it is that just its vast numbers of USB ports, which I need to plug in all my cameras, microphone, blah, blah, blah. I used to be a PC girl, but yeah, once I got my my first Mac, I really enjoy using the Mac more than I enjoy using the PC. But there's definitely software that only runs on the PC, so we're a split household. I think David is the same way. He uses a Mac for work, for writing, and for general like interneting, and uses his PC for like World of Warcraft and stuff like that. All right, so I'm starting to bring in a little bit of highlighting, just kind of picking out little details here. I definitely want to highlight there. I'm not using my highest highlight color. I'm using my middle, my yellow. And I'm just kind of blocking in, where does the light fall here? Light is definitely going to be falling right to here because it's going to fall from above. I blorfed on her hair a little bit there. Let's see if I can back it out. If not, I'll have to repaint it. Blorfing is a thing. To blorf is human. But yeah, so now I'm just going to kind of use my midtone, actually, this yellow. My midtone's somewhere between these two. So I'm using this to, like, figure out where my highlights are before I punch them up. Oh, yeah. I mean, there are both sets of people, right? And then there are the mixed households. David and I definitely have a mixed household. Like, we both have iPhones. We both use Macs for our work. And then we have our PCs for gaming. Or for, in my case, for streaming. Yeah, no need to get into the price. I mean, it's worth it for some people, and it's not worth it for other Grey Wolf. I personally love the product enough that I'll pay the money. I also love the battery life, because when I was doing writing workshops and stuff, the battery life was significantly longer. Now companies are definitely catching up to each other. Like the technology is less different now across all the platforms. So it's just what you like, right? And at that point, you can't really diss anybody else's choice, and they can't diss yours. It's like, this is what I like. This is what fits my lifestyle, my price point, my budget, my interface, my user interface, likes and dislikes, and just goes. And it's good that there are people that like both, right? It's good to have a competitive market where everybody isn't using the same thing. Like, that's definitely like a plus. So, since I use both, I can see the pluses and minuses of both. And I can see why people get like real big brand loyalty to either way, right? And that's cool. Like I said, it's like, if everybody was the same, it'd be a boring world. Yeah, that's true, Carrie. Sometimes you just only have room for one. Yeah, right, Grey Wolf. Like, everybody's got kind of a bias, right? I used to have kind of that, and then I think when I got my iPhone, I just liked the user interface so much. I think that's where it changed for me. But yeah, it's like, you can love PC all you want, and I will totally get it. And you can love Apple all you want, and I will totally get it. Where I run into problems is where I'm switching between them and I have to remember how to do something on the one that I know how to do on the other. But yeah, I mean, everything's got an advantage and a disadvantage. Even in Paint. Like, Games Workshop has the advantage that the colors are formulated to be the perfect color for the armies as painted in the codexes. They're giving you a paint system, so they can guide you. They don't have to teach you to fish. They can just hand you the fish, and you can run with the fish and get your stuff painted. And then you've got Reaper, which has a lot of more broad advantages, right? And when you're not just painting your GW army and you're wanting to learn other things, we will teach you to fish. And then you can even get more out of your fish, right? You can get more if you teach yourself to fish, then you can get even more out of your GW fish, because then you're like, oh, I could also use this contrast paint for X and not just Y, right? So it's all about your toolbox. There's nothing wrong with starting with a limited toolbox where somebody hands you the fish and you use the fish. Like, especially when you're new, that can be useful. That's why we made the triad system. The triad system is definitely handing you the fish, more than teaching you to use the fish. But in using the triads, you hopefully do pick up a little bit on how to fish. And so you're able to adapt a little bit, eventually. You're able to spread your wings a little bit. Because you always have the triad system to fall back on, if you're really not sure what to use for highlighting and shading. I like teaching people to fish because I like the joy that comes with really opening up all your options and understanding all of the creative possibilities that are open to you as a person when you're working with these models. Like, I love to see people really fly, really just like jump out and like try new things and paint a model that's better than they ever thought they could paint, right? That's what I love. So now I'm expanding my highlights. You can see how I'm kind of working in bands again. Remember that whole highlight, shadow, highlight thing? We're doing that here too, see? We've got highlight, we've got shadow, we've got highlight, we've got shadow. We're bringing up more highlight down here on the tips of this. So we're still working in bands of highlight and shadow on this. Yes, M-Pit, we did. Because it's the whole teach a person to fish, don't just hand them the fish. If you teach them to fish, then they can, do their own thing. They don't need you anymore. Some companies don't like that. Some companies would rather they hand you the fish, you use the fish, everybody is happy. And, if you want to do it that way, rock it, But I like to teach you to fish because then you can use anything. Like, once you understand how paint works, how colors work across the board, you can get more mileage out of everything you have. I want sushi now. I mean, I don't mind when people hand me the fish if it's sushi. There are times when I'm new to a hobby that I don't mind it using a fish that someone has handed to me. Metaphorical fish. There, I'm going to lighten up all of this a little bit by glazing it. Layering up the color. So can you see the light and shadow bands now? We got a highlight, we got shadow, we've got more highlight in a band here, we've got shadow, we've got more highlight. With metals, you always want to alternate where you can. Love sushi. Tonight is Indian Chinese pork chops, one of my favorites. Recipe I got for the Instant Pot, actually. It's tasty. It's very, very tasty. But then, yeah, I think we're doing some fish tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going down to the city, so we're going to Tartine, which I'm looking forward to, even though it's very bready and I will have to go off diet for it. So we have a bit of band of highlight here, but we're missing some of our band of highlight, like the highlights on the edges of the membranes here that correspond to this band of light across the middle. So we're going to put that in. It's in a great book called, I think, Instantly Indian. I'll have to look it up. It's by a pretty famous Indian chef who adapted a bunch of recipes for the Instant Pot because of the popularity of the Instant Pot. So I do them in my pressure cooker. You could do them in a slow cooker just the same, though. I mean, all Instant Pot recipes can be adapted, usually for slow cooking as well, or a different variety of cooking. They're very tasty. Indian Chinese fusion is a thing, and it's really, really good. Like, you take the Indian spices and you add in soy sauce and a couple of, like, more Asian-y type things, and it's just really, really good. So I'm bringing up my highlights again a bit more here, so I have more of a solid band of highlight across this area now. We can see the light falling. I am doing this a little bit stylized too, because I mean, it's all pointed upwards, so I am keeping it, it is technically going to be getting more highlights. I'll have to lighten this little tail down here and keep the shadow there. My shadow should be a little bit lighter since it is all facing up, but I'm taking some liberties because I want it to look cool and stylized, so. Yeah. I mean, it's a thing. David and I like pork, but we're trying to eat more fish, less red meat. So I did teriyaki salmon a couple nights ago, and he did Mediterranean chicken kebabs last night. They were tasty. Very, very tasty. I'm getting really good at like Greek yogurt sauces. I would put together like a mint and what did it have in it? It was mint and lemon. It's like lemon, mint, and a garlic in a Greek yogurt. It was really, really good on the chicken. There we go. So just kind of bringing up these little circular. So on a ball, you're going to have a specular highlight. You're going to have a dot of white wherever your light is coming from. Then it's going to be surrounded kind of by a shadow. And then you're going to have a little bit of a under reflection. Yeah, bacon I go back and forth on. I enjoy it sometimes. When I was on keto, I always had bacon snacks. That was my snack of choice, but Nowadays, not as much. Trying to really eat more seafood, which I love seafood, so for me that's like a win. And I found a cheaper place near me that does poke bowls, pokedon, that I can get essentially, because I don't need the rice with my sushi, technically. I just want the fish and the flavoring, so very, very tasty, like pokedon salad bowl for like $13. That's in my budget, so I'm able to do it. Yeah. Yeah, Greek yogurt really works in place of sour cream. I like it. David still prefers the more sour, slightly more sour flavor of sour cream, but I like all the Indian and Mediterranean cultures that use some variant of it, like a yogurt dip or a yogurt sauce, for kind of a counter to the really savory and spicy dishes. I really enjoy that combo. So tasty. All right, a little bit more of a highlight. There we go. So this is almost like a gemstone, like doing a round gemstone, what you're doing on these little balls. But you're not going quite as dark with the shadow in general. And you're not changing, like you're not going maybe quite as light with the highlight either. Because you're not doing transmitted light like you are on a gemstone. You're just doing kind of bounced light. So you can keep your under highlight a little bit darker. Not quite as popped up or vivid. But yeah, so in keeping your pinpoint of light round, and then your little shadow area round, and then your highlight area, your under reflection becomes like a little crescent. And that is what makes these look round instead of flat. Yeah, in general, like I say, Indian food, it's just is really fresh and healthy. I don't know. I mean, there's no dairy in it generally. Coconut milk is more common, although you can get the yogurt sauces and stuff, but it's not as prevalent. And you don't get as much bread stuff, although you can certainly make your flatbreads and stuff. So I find it very easy to eat very healthy when cooking Indian, so that's why I'm so happy I picked it up. And it's really enjoyable. All the different spices going together in all the stages. It's maybe a little bit more work, a little more prep, lots of chopping, but I do really enjoy it. Oh no, blurf. Very slight blurf. Working with the top of these struts now, I do want to put in a little bit more highlight up here. I get sick of it. Like, some of the Mediterranean food it's like a lot of the same combos of flavors. So like when it's infinitely lemon and an herb, then I get a little bit bored with Mediterranean. But if you go down to like where it's more like more closer to like Africa or Turkey, or you get more of that sort of stuff, then I think it really starts to shine. Then you get my interest back. But it's generally Mediterranean cooking is very simple too, which is nice, right? Some of the things aren't as, but in general I can see why Mediterranean catches on, because it's a very, very simple, at heart, it's a very simple eating and cooking style, I think. You can do it on a budget, and you can do it pretty quickly, and it doesn't take a ton of time to prep and prepare stuff. Unlike Indian food. Which is a little bit longer. Although Indian food comes together fast. Like, your prep is a lot, but it comes together super fast once you've got everything prepped. There we go. Now we're coming up. That's lovely. Okay, Shadow Raven, have a good lunch. Now that we've made you hungry, right? Yeah, Moroccan food. Yep. It's tasty. How'd you get paint to fill in all those little holes you find in? Usually, moon glooms, I either do a wash, like a heavy wash, or I do a I start black or start painting the whole area dark gray. Like, so I'll just put a like kind of a slightly thinned base coat so that it all flows into the cracks. Not really a wash, kind of halfway between a base coat and a heavy wash. And I'll do that so that all the black is in there first. But I also do washes and just go dark. Actually, I just did that on What's Her Name yesterday, where I needed to fill in all those holes, and so I just put a wash over it, and then I started working stuff up again. And some of this I'll have to kind of reshade a bit to get the holes filled in, like on the inside of the arm there. But I would use a wash for that. That's one of the few areas I feel like washes, like I still regularly use washes, is to bring out small details like that needs to be darker. So... And just a quick mention, if you're on my Patreon, I talk about this. I did a chainmail tutorial not long ago with metallics on a big model, but it's still the technique still holds true. All right. Oh, boat! Look out for the boat! Ah. Yeah, I sometimes feel you get a cleaner look, Moonglooms. If you want a really clean, tight look, I would just base coat it in black or dark gray. But if you're doing more organic or it's a messier model like an orc or something, then I've been known to do the wash thing instead. So on the lower side of the shield here, you're going to get a little bit of light caught on this angle, but everything else is just going to be reflected light. Because this is perpendicular. Not only is this area under the hair, but it's kind of like going at perpendicular to the light source. So you may get a little bit here. But not as much. Not as much. So I'll bring this up a lot lighter than I'll bring up that highlight. Yeah, no problem. But yeah, generally thinner paint is what you want to go into the cracks for chainmail. Somebody just said that. Thinner paint. Ah, Daffodweir said it. Ding, ding, ding. Correct. If your paint isn't flowing into the cracks, thin it more. Sometimes it needs just a little extra thinning. So you want to put in, you're still alternating like highlights and shadows here, but you want to put in enough to pick out these little edges. And I'm using the side of my brush for the most part, since these are raised edges. It's very easy to just use the side of my brush with very little paint on it to kind of paint those. And if you've got good brush control, you can also just come in and paint them. But if you don't have great brush control yet, you can use the side of your brush to get these little edges. Yeah, just take and thin down your dark then, and just take a brush with a good point and just kind of pick up your paint and poke it in there. Make sure that it's a little bit thinner though. And that can be a thing on resin too if you didn't get the primer all the way down in the holes. So then you might want to take some thick paint and like a broken brush, like a brush where you've lost the tip, and just like thin it a little bit and just like dab it in there, like heavily. I do that too. Like that's why I keep the broken brush around other than for mixing. Is I take a point, like maybe a 4:1 black, because our solid black or our pure black have really high coverage. And I'll just take that brush and just jam it in, because I've already lost the tip, so I can't hurt it more. But yeah, if you have just a few holes, I just like grab paint and just kind of stuff it in there. Make sure that it's a little thicker in that case, because if it's a case of resin with mold release down in there, or bones, then you need to make the paint a little thicker so it'll stick. And make sure it's quite a bit of paint. Like a glob of paint. You can always touch it up once it dries. All right, we are at about time. I'll bring up that lower edge just a bit more. Because remember, we got to bring it up to white or it's not going to look shiny. So we'll pick a couple parts that are kind of sticking out and we'll bring those up like that. And maybe a little bit lighter on this one, and then we can say that the back of the shield is pretty cool. I'm not bringing this up to pure white here. I'm using my pale yellow instead. But I still want to bring up that edge So that's looking pretty good. I probably need to lighten this a bit more, bounce light. But overall, that's not looking bad. It does need darker shadows. It does need some more pop, some white, some pure white to make it look really shiny. It's only looking really shiny in the areas where I've got pure white. So if I want it to be shinier, and this is where a lot of people don't quite follow through with their NMM, you gotta use those pops of pure white. You gotta have them. That's what makes it look shiny. I pop that white in there and boom, it looks so much more shiny. I don't necessarily want to go up all the way here, but I could put tiny touches of pure white here just to pop a little bit of contrast. Tiny touches of it at the ends of things. But that contrast is what gives you more shiny. Now it looks more shiny. I could keep going with it too. I also need to raise my under reflections probably. Oh yeah, Reaper, actually I contacted them and they said that con was canceled. So I think they couldn't figure out a way to do it the way they wanted to do it. But I'm not certain exactly why. But yeah, so don't worry about it. ReaperCon is my my teaching thing. My next teaching thing coming up. Unless I decide to do like this summer, maybe I'll do like an in-person or an online seminar. I was going to try to do an online class for my Patreon, so. But yeah, nothing right now. Nothing right now. Right now I'm just trying to like catch up. But thanks for asking, John. There, we'll blend that in a little bit. Okay, so what we did today, we're working on NMM Gold. We got the back of the shield looking pretty good, actually. The front is there's a lot tighter, tinier detail. It's not as big. You can see how much easier it is to work on NMM on a surface that's larger. So we still have to do the little handle over here, and kind of the inside and up top on the shield edges here. But otherwise, she doesn't have a lot of gold detailing. So after this, we're really to the base and leather. After we finish up the sword, we'll probably do the sword all in one video, or one section, I should say. But yeah, that's what we did today. And we talked a lot about color composition, and we talked also earlier in the stream, we talked about brass versus bronze versus gold and why you might choose one or the other over the other. So that's earlier, and if you missed that but are interested in the topic, then you should go over and listen to that once it's on the VOD. And there we go. Thanks, everybody. Monique, thanks you too. She's getting close to done here, guys. That's why I've got the mini. I'm not going to show you the mini I have lined up yet. We'll show you maybe next time. Yeah, surface tension keeps it suspended, right? Yeah, it can be mold release. It can be that. Yep, thin black or brown liner. Poke it down. Yep. What Derek says. Listen to that guy. He knows what he's talking about. He's like a really good painter or something. Yeah, first I need to get my Patreon back on track, John David. I had some serious technical difficulties, and I'm going to have to do so much this coming week to check up. We might be a little late on a couple of deliverables this month. But I'm on time with most of it, so I don't mind. I mean, if it works that way this month, it's just the way it works. All right, cool. So who are we rating today, Reaper? Here, let's give Monique her card again. Boop. There's the schedule. Quindy has linked you the schedule for the classes, Twisted Oma. You cannot buy them yet, Twisted Oma, because we're still taking class submissions. So you can find the classes, you can see the schedule, but you can't buy them yet. We're getting there. We're getting there. Yeah, no problem, everybody. No problem, Krios. It was good to see you. Yep, Reaperland later, don't remember, and we're going to see Luca, so wish the Alpaca Brigade, give them my best, and I will see you all Monday. See you later. Bye-bye, everybody. Have a great weekend.